Hi, my name is Jaime Stief. I work with the Tamarack Institute. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar titled Community Empowerment Through Self-Mastery. We're going to start with land acknowledgement. So I'm joining from the traditional territories of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, colonially known as Waterloo, Ontario. We have people joining from across Turtle Island and further afield as well. We acknowledge those who came as settlers either in this generation or from generations past, and also those who came to this territory involuntarily through the transatlantic slave trade. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent as we welcome everybody here today. As I share these words about where I'm joining from, we acknowledge that that is an act of truth, but the work of reconciliation happens after that act of truth. As an organization with a mission to end poverty in all its forms, we know that that will only be possible through truth and reconciliation and through the work of justice, of dismantling systems that perpetuate inequity. Our work here includes respecting land and waters, keeping our promises, partnering with humility, respect, and honor, and living forward in a way that brings harmony, balance, and a world where no one lives at the expense of another. And with that, I am going to hand the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Heather Keam.
Thank you so much, Jaime. And thank you for taking the time out to join us in a discussion about community empowerment through self-mastery. My name is Heather Keam, and I'm the Associate Director, ABCD, with the Tamarack Institute. And over the past few months, I've been getting a question about the ABCD approach, and that it's not the only way to empower a community. And I've reflected on this a lot, and I agree with the statement. Asset-based community development is not a new approach, and it's been done all over the world without being called asset-based community development or ABCD. But what I love about asset-based community development is the principles. It helps to ground me in centering people, their gifts and their assets. It's a lens or a way of working with community. It's not a program, a framework, or an approach. So you don't need to label your work ABCD, but it's a great way just to reflect and evaluate how you're working. And so this January, I was fortunate enough to visit Indianapolis to visit an amazing colleague, April Donor. And she introduced me to the work of Kheprw Institute and the work that they're doing in their local communities. And I had to share their story. As I listened and learned about them and the work that they did, I used my ABCD principle lens. And I said, wow, they're really, really centering people in their work. And they don't call it ABCD themselves, nor do they call their institute ABCD. But what they are doing is community empowerment through self-mastery. And I just wanted to share this with you. And so today's webinar is about learning community empowerment through self-mastery. We will unpack the meaning of self-mastery as it relates to community development and how gifts and assets can empower your community. So we're really going to dive into the work that they're doing. So take a deep breath, grab a cuppa, your pen and your paper. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, April Donor, who will be moderating this conversation and is fortunate to be part of the Kheprw team. And also, she's a fellow ABCD steward. So over to you, April.
Hi, everyone. Good day. So I'm just so honored and excited to be part of this conversation. I first encountered Kheprw before I moved here to Indianapolis. I was here to learn about different asset-based, community-centered approaches in the city. And I was at a church who were having this community conversation about practices, and I heard from two of the young people who, Chin, I still believe one of them was you, who were sharing about the entrepreneurial businesses that they had started in like junior high school. and the aquaponics that they were learning, and that they were growing arugula, and had worked with the grown-ups in the team to find local restaurants that they were selling it to. And, I was just so amazed and impressed at also just the way these young people carried themselves. I could feel how supported they were by community. And I just could feel they had this electric leadership energy. And ever since, I've just been a huge fangirl of Kheprw. And in the last year or so, I've had a chance to work a lot more closely, and I've grown so much as a result. So I wanted to introduce Imhotep, also known as Brer Rabbit, co-founder of the Institute. Hand it over to you to tell us a bit about you, what you do, and also more of your team.
Thank you guys for inviting us today. I appreciate the opportunity to come and show a little bit about our story and how we do community-based work. As you've already said, I'm one of the founders of the Kheprw Institute, formerly created a little 20 plus years ago. But we've been doing this work in community all our lives. Paulette and I think Paulette's on the call, is she? If not, another one of the co-founders, Paulette Fair.
Yep,
And
I'm here.
Hey, Paulette, been doing community-based work for over 40 years together. And the birth of Kheprw comes out of our approach to building community through people first, family first lens to work. I'm just going to popcorn it around to some of our next generation leaders who can be much more succinct and clear about what they do, why we do what we do. And I guess since April called Chin out first, popcorn over you, Chin. Who are you? How long you been here? What do you do? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. What's up, y'all? My name is Chinyelu Mwaafrika. I am one of the team leads on Kheprw's marketing and media department, as well as a consultant with Scarabus Consulting. I'm 24 years old. I've been a part of the Kheprw community for 24 years and 9 months. Just a testament to really how long this work has been going on. So I was told to keep it concise, so I will leave it there and pass it to Diop.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Diop Adisa, also a long time Kheprw member, been here since the inception of it. Just a little bit about myself. Right now, most of what I do is around entrepreneurship, so helping to curate lessons and experiences internal to our organization and external to the community and the partners and the members we serve. And then just try to listen and strategize and help us make our way through all of this unexpected growth as the world is changing rapidly around us. So that's all I'll say, and I will pass it to Terra.
Hey everybody, my name is Terra. I've been a part of the Kheprw community for a little over a year. I have the nickname of Process Queen because that's what I like to do, make processes. I focus mainly in like the admin spaces, payroll, grants, volunteering, and environmental justice. And I'll pass it to Mimi.
How did I know you were going to pass it to me? Good morning, y'all. I'm Mimi Zakem, like Rock'em Sock'em Zakem. We also do like a check-in process usually at Kheprw Institute. Jeru put it in the chat. It's like if today was a color and if today was a number. And we usually have a bonus question. I think we have a lot of people, so I'll just say I'm feeling like a forest green 8.5. And I found my way to Kheprw about 9 years ago. It has been and continues to be a life-changing journey. I got involved through the food movement. In 2015, a lot of the grocery stores in the cities closed, and I came to a community conversation. I was in AmeriCorps at the time, and just fell in love with the people and the practice, and became a part of launching our own response to the grocery store closings, which is the Community Controlled Food Initiative. So a cooperative approach to working with farmers and sourcing local food and distributing it in our own community, creating our own food supply that we control and use to build community wealth. And then a couple years later, I got into our consulting work with Scarabus Consulting, which was really a lot of us trying to respond to people being like, what is the Kheprw secret sauce? How do you do intergenerational youth development, leadership development? You know, people who come through this space, when I look at them years later, they're, you know, transformed. What is that? How do you do it? How do you do conflict transformation and all these things? So that's how we got into doing more of teaching tools and processes and workshops and things of the sort. So yeah, I will leave it there and pass it to Zelalem.
What up, y'all? Feeling like a light green 7.77. I threw it in the chat. Zelalem Temesgen. Been a part of the Kheprw Institute for about 2 years now. Just recently graduated from IUPUI. I'm currently the grants manager. Really passionate about health equity, data management, and for people to understand how their work and lives are impactful to themselves and community. So I think that's all I'll say. That was one breath. And I'll pass it to Ajani.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ajani Johnson. I'm 22 years old and been around Kheprw since about the 3rd grade, so about 16 years. And I do video work, and I'm also a aspiring entrepreneur. And I'll pass it to, has Jeru gone?
Saving the best for last, of course. I'm just kidding.
Oh man, Miss Ferris last. Almost there.
Well, yeah, we never hope to compare ourselves to Miss Fair. But yes, hello everybody. I am Jeru Qadar. I've been with the Kheprw Institute for about 5 years. At this current moment, I work in marketing, communications. You can see I got the fancy microphone and headset. I got my boy Dobby in the background. He's my cat, 2 years old. And outside of the marketing communications space, I also am part of our Alchemy Plus online learning platform. I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but basically a tool for us to do popular education and give people the blueprint for how Kheprw does what it does. I hope that was everything. I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Fair. Good to be here.
Hi, everyone. Paulette Fair. And Em and I were working together one summer at a not-for-profit. He was a consultant. I was an admin assistant. When we realized that our youngsters, his was 14 and mine was a 13-year-old grandson, needed an experience, a summer experience. And so, you know, we've always heard that necessity is the mother of invention. And we had a huge lobby in the place. It was a giant warehouse that needed hands-on assistance. And so we told the youngsters, hey, listen, you all are going to work with us, and we're going to give you a task, and we're going to give you a little stipend. We didn't say little, we said a stipend. So we had them dot and paint from Miss Tents that came in. And we knew we needed to give them a cultural experience, an intellectual cultural experience, because children who get out of school in June and don't go back until August can many times fall into the habit of not conscientiously doing something intellectually. It's not that they don't. They do a lot of intellectual things. They play marbles, they play cards, they play baseball, they do numbers, but to do something conscientiously. And so we had them go to work with us first part of the day till noon. They were doing something out in the warehouse. At noon, feed them lunch. They'd take a shower, get dressed, and then they'd come into the boardroom and do. We decided a report. Just tell us what you think about these two analyses of our culture that we live in. And it really worked. And The boys told their friends that they were working. The boys said, well, can we come too? And therein started a summer program for African American males. It was only about 6 or 7 of them. And from that, the next summer, there were more youngsters. From that, we realized we needed intergenerational efforts at paying attention to these youngsters and being involved in who they were, what they thought, what they wanted life to be. Here's some experiences you need to have. You need to think in terms of why you're even getting skills, why you even thinking about self-mastery. What are you going to do with the skills? And so then we decided the platform of the social enterprise would then keep them in contact with the community. Because if you have any kind of business, social enterprise included, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So you have got to pay attention to your community. And so you can see through that one experience that summer, that bringing these boys together and seeing how they really needed a cultural, and I don't even really want to call it intellectual. I want to call it a push toward, can you do something where you can look to see to do your best? And out of that, we call it self-mastery. Not perfect, just your best. And how do you connect that to the community? Because if you don't make the community you want to live in, who's going to do that? You part of that. And so with that foundation back in 2003, we just started marching forward, and here we are. Youth leadership development to self-mastery, for self-mastery through the platform of the social enterprise, and community empowerment through those young people in the programs that they work on, that they
Thank you, Ms. Fair, for being so succinct. Great introduction.
Well, I was going to say
5 minutes.
Ms. Fair, you actually, you walked us right into our opening questions, which were going to be, please tell us how Kheprw Institute came about, and also why do you focus on community empowerment through self-mastery as your mantra? So yeah, you've started telling the Kheprw story. Wanted to see if anyone else would like to add on to that, whether the origin story, superhero origin
I would
story.
like, if you don't mind, Chinyelu to start that off, and then he can popcorn around if others have any additional pieces. Succinctly, though, Chinyelu, succinctly.
Yes, I will be succinct. So I'm mainly going to speak to that piece about community empowerment through self-mastery, what it is and why we do it. And I think that, like, you know, community empowerment through self-mastery, it really lays it out right there, like, is like, to me. But I think what that really means is, like, we recognize that in order to meet, communities are made up of individuals, right? Who are all contributing in different ways at different levels. And so in order for any one individual to have the most impact in pushing their community forward, growing their community, developing the structures that their community needs to survive, you know, they need to achieve a level of development within themselves to be able to use all of the tools in their toolbox to their fullest potential. And those tools include, you know, obviously, like, quote unquote hard skills, like how to balance a checkbook, you know, how to send an invoice, how to organize a team, and then kind of like, but also like softer skills, like, you know, relationship management, keeping track of, like, you know, managing like community like assets and stuff like that. So community empowerment through self-mastery is really taking a step back from, like, what does my community need, to what do I bring to that solution, and what do I need to develop in myself to be able to have the most impact and contribute at the highest level that I possibly can, while also, you know, balancing my strengths and weaknesses with the strengths and weaknesses of those around me, and encouraging them to, you know, also be achieving that level of personal development and growth. And that's where accountability comes in. But succinct, so I'll leave it there for now.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you, Chin. And I want to add in a layer of the next question, but I think it relates to community empowerment through self-mastery, which is, you mentioned assets, Chin, and I know Heather was introducing it as, Kheprw is a wonderful example of asset-based community development, even though, you all don't use that term. You have your own beautiful, dictionary and lexicon of your own language you've developed to describe what you do and the way you do it. So I would want to ask, Im?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I'd just love to hear what you mentioned assets and bringing your gifts. So what do assets mean to Kheprw or within Kheprw? What do you define as assets?
Yeah.
Hey, Chin.
Yeah.
Ask one of your colleagues to answer that question.
Sure, I was going to ask. And for that question, I'm going to pass it to, I think Mimi has a good explanation of that, of social capital and all of that. So I'll pass it to Mimi.
Okay, so when I think of an asset, it's anything that's valuable. And a lot of time that depends on what you value. So at Kheprw, we often talk about different forms of capital, of, social capital, relationships, financial capital, dollars. You can have, physical capital, buildings and infrastructure, intellectual capital, what the different skills and expertise and lived experience you have, cultural capital, the ways that you can resonate with people through forms of art and dress and language, and spiritual capital, your connection to whatever you would consider to be divine. And we often talk about that a lot of these things are functions of your connection capital, your relationships. So generally, financial capital, physical capital, intellectual capital, these all flow through who you know, and also how much people pour those things into each other and share those things is often a function of the quality, the depth of your relationship, of your connection with those people. And so we really focus on how do you build a strong relationship with yourself and with others on a genuine human connection level, and then following the opportunities that come out of that as your primary intention.
Thank you. So, and that actually flows beautifully into, I wanted to ask about relationship. What relationship means within Kheprw? How does that show up? How do you weave that into your day-to-day work?
I think I'd like to popcorn that one to Terra.
And how did I know you were gonna pass it to me?
I got you.
Oh, I feel like it's karma. What does relationship? So that's an interesting question because I mean, since coming into the space about a year ago, that's been very challenging for me. Like, I did not necessarily grow up in like a tight-knit community and stuff. I would say I feel like I kind of like operated a little solo, like feeling like an outsider and whatnot. But I think since being a part of this community, my definition and value of relationships has shifted. Just like being vulnerable with people, like letting people express themselves just as they are, just be as they are. And then vice versa, like also like expressing myself out, being vulnerable to people just as I am, and working together with who we are. And it's like, even if there are some minor differences and stuff. I mean, there will always be because we're all different and stuff. We are all like working towards the same goal of like, we want to make sure that our community is good. And how we approach it may be different, but I think the goal is the same. So yeah, I think I kind of just look at it as like just showing up as you are, and accepting that. And if somebody or one person or both people or multiple people are like triggered in any way, like sitting down to have authentic conversations and getting to the root of how did we get here. And then, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to build on that?
I think I ditto everything Terra said. For me, it's really looking critically at, in a world where relationships can more easily be severed and you can block people and just move on and get on with life, how do we center not only our identities, but really looking at how we can be with each other in a way that's like healthy and sustainable and impactful for us as community. So opposite of Terra, grew up in a very ethnic Ethiopian, like Orthodox Christian like culture, where relationships were heavily centered, and your connections to people were always valued and cherished. But there weren't really questions asked about how we could, nurture those more and look critically at what folks now in different generations need. What is it that changes throughout time? And if these things that we hold valuable still, these, I think, values and morals that we find within ourselves and our communities, how do we pass those on in ways that aren't harmful? How do we build on and expand upon those within younger generations and build these relationships? So I think Kheprw really, really centers just that transference via relationship, how you self and others through that. So I actually kind of want to pass it to Ajani to finish us off on this one.
Yeah, I think one thing that I could add to that is just like with my own experience when it comes to community. Growing up, my mother made sure that me and my brother did not really rely on others too much, and she wanted to push us to be more independent. And me now as a 22-year-old, it's very hard for me to ask others for help. And I think just being a part of Kheprw has let me know that being in community is a big asset, because it is okay to ask for help. And a lot of the times, your community is always going to be there to help you out. They aren't going to do everything for you, but those things that you think that you have to do yourself, you really don't. And relationships are a big part of that. Having strong relationships with people is going to help you get further in life when it comes to asking for help with things, creating new opportunities for yourself through those relationships, and also just your relationships with people can provide some support when it comes to self-development. So having conversations with people about how you're doing or the observations that they're seeing in you, things like that can also help with your self-development. So community is very important. And I think we're ready for the next question.
Since we have like a minute left to still dwell on this a little bit. I mean, I feel like we could all talk all day about each of these things. But for folks who haven't had the pleasure of visiting Kheprw, you all are an organization, right? An organization that does a lot of different programs, a lot of different work in this community, and has many relationships beyond the community. And one thing I find fascinating is how you function as an organization that is a nonprofit, has to do a lot of organizational stuff, but still centers yourself in relationship, both internally and with how you interact with and work with partners and do partnerships. So Just if there's any, you know, anything else to share, folks who might want to integrate this into their work more, just kind of ways you shifted or you think you do your processes, your policies different, your partnerships that have learned to center relationships more than the kind of more transactional world a lot of us have to work in.
Would you step up for that? Because, you know, we talk about that.
I would thank Ms. Fair, but let's ask Diop if he could speak to it.
Oh, that's perfect. That's even better than you. Please, Diop.
Thank you, Ms. Fair. Thank you.
All right, can you please just succinctly repeat the question so I can.
Sure. Yes, I'll try to be succinct now. So since Kheprw is an organization, but that functions very much in community, how have you found different ways of acting that are not as transactional as most traditional organizations function, that is actually centered in relationship?
Yeah, so I guess I'll say that since relationships are primary, then our code of conduct, our principles, our practices, our institutional ways of being are built around that. So it's not a one instance that may define how we use that. It's all instances. So if you prioritize people first, for example, we had I'll call it a major opportunity for learning. I'll call it that. That opportunity has and still has the potential to impact a lot of people that we work with, as well as people that we don't work with directly. And instead of just making decisions that will impact all of those people, we allow the breadth of our organization to have a conversation with us about, you know, what they think should and shouldn't happen, because it may impact their growth, their development, their livelihood. A lot of times when organizations are growing or changing, they don't bring in the entire team to allow them to participate in that moment in time. They just make a decision that they think is best for their entity and keep it moving. Well, the best decision for our entity is to keep people involved in the conversation, because that's how we keep going. So the livelihood of the institution is one thing that we are always managing and trying to keep going. Simultaneously, the relationships and the connectivity, the truthfulness of those relationships are the most important. We don't have an institution if we don't uphold that. So upholding that is more important than any bottom line, any calculation, any position, any program. So the fact that we prioritize that allows our ways of being collectively to stand out, juxtaposed to other traditional forms of collective activity.
Thank you.
If we have time, I would.
I knew it. I knew he'd do a fabulous job.
Jeru, I did want to make sure we have a little time to talk about conflict, if that's all right. Maybe you can.
Sure, no, it's all good. We can keep it moving.
Just because that is so key, and I know it's also been mentioned. So yeah, I know that conflict transformation, which is just such a great phrase in itself, is really key to your practices, to the work within Kheprw. So how do you deal with conflict in the Kheprw space, and also why? Why have you made it central to the work?
I'd like to pass that one back to Ajani.
So conflict management, or not conflict management, but conflict transformation. Something that's very important when you're working or living with people. It's about really getting at the situation and having those honest conversations with people when you're having a conflict or when something is bothering you. Just getting at it and creating a space where each person is able to talk about what's going on, expressing their feelings, getting both sides, as well as having a conversation about how to not solve the problem, but really finding a way for both people, or multiple people, to figure out a way to get to the solution of what's going on. I think the most important part of that is that conversation. So, actually letting both people talk about what's going on with themselves, and making sure that you're putting that in importance makes it just a lot more easier for everybody to live with each other, to work with each other, as well as it strengthens your bonds with people. Yeah, that's kind of all I have.
Thank you.
And I'll pass it to whoever wants to pick it up.
Maybe somebody can give an example.
I can give an example if that's all right. I think that I think I know the situation that Diop is talking about, the opportunity for like personal and organizational growth is a very recent example. And I think like based not without like putting too much detail in it, basically we had there was a question like recently of like, are we going to be able to keep operating at the same capacity that we're currently operating at, and if not, what areas of the work do we need to scale back in order to protect the organization? And obviously a source of conflict for a lot of people, people start thinking about like layoffs, if I get laid off, how am I going to be able to pay my bills? If they cut my program, what am I going to do? So, but like Diop said, rather than like making decisions and just, everybody has to be okay with it, that conflict is a source of growth and an opportunity to develop a deeper understanding of each other, and in this instance of the work and the organization, So by bringing that issue to the group, by making everybody aware of it as soon as possible, one, you mitigate the risk of people having, reactions when, the rug gets snatched out from under them. Because it's like, okay, well, you all found out when we found out, now everybody has the same opportunity to prepare, but also it gives you the opportunity to have more people thinking about how do we find a solution to this problem that benefits everybody, how do we, or maybe not even a solution to the problem, how do we find a way to navigate this crisis that, leaves everybody, that is conscious of what's in everybody's best interest. So yeah, I think that's what I'll say to that, and just that every conflict is an opportunity to gain that deeper understanding and to find a way to move forward in a way that you wouldn't be able to if one person is just going to decide, because this is what I want, this is what I need, this is the way that it has to go. So
either that or it comes out, I know best. When people jump up or the head of a committee or whatever and feel like I know best because I can see what's on the horizon, and a piece of what's best and a piece of what's on the horizon, no matter what. And you personally have more peace of mind when a conflict comes up, if indeed you step to transformation, not resolution. You don't have to be responsible for doing the perfect thing every time. Not resolution and not amelioration. Everybody's going to be happy with this. No, it's transformation, which is about conversation. So you can transform the conflict into a relationship, further discussion, and somebody will say something. I'm 80, so it has happened to me a number of times. You put a conflict out there, it don't have to be between you and them. It can just be a conflict, an issue, a problem, a challenge. All those are conflicts. Those are conflicts because they stop you in your track and they got to be dealt with. And when you pull people together that you're having a relationship with, you already have a relationship, you don't even know them, you pull people together and say, this is what's going on. What's your idea? What's your thought on this? If you're in committee or in group, somebody else will say something that'll bounce it off you. I'm telling you, that relationship is all you got, because you can't take none of the money with you, none of the fine clothes. The car didn't go in the coffin either. All you take with you is the relationships that you left behind. You can't take those either.
Yeah, I love it. Can't fit the car in the coffin. I want to make sure, since each of these topics, you all have so much to share on it, and Kheprw has so much wisdom accumulated. We could spend much more time on this topic. So I wanted all of these topics. I wanted to move to make sure we have time to hear what Kheprw has planned for 2024 and into the future, including ways people can learn more from the team.
Well, since I was the last one to speak, I'll popcorn it over to M. M, what you got to say?
Top secret.
And maybe we should keep it that way.
Well, we got a lot of different things taking place. I think I'll popcorn over to Jeru in a second, but I would say the most important thing for us right now, in this midst of real global uncertainty everywhere, just being honest and truthful, not only with ourselves, but with our families, our communities, to know that, one, we don't have the answers. Two, the challenges are extremely huge. And the beauty of the moment in the midst of this collapse is new creative things can come out of this opportunity. So there's some programming related pieces that, of course, we can speak to. I don't plan to. Jeru's got one of our programs that we are highlighting and focusing on. So I'll pass over to Jeru for that. And Jeru, if there's some other activities that you see that we're doing in 2024, you think we should raise up popcorn to the next person?
Yeah, most definitely. So again, I think one of the major things to look out for in 2024 is our online learning platform, and just, I'd say, community building platform period, called Alchemy Plus. Alchemy Plus is an offshoot of our entrepreneurial incubator and accelerator, where we had Black and brown entrepreneurs come into our space, and just walking them through how they can start their own business, what does it mean to run a social enterprise, etc. And we were thinking, Kheprw's foundation, as you all were hearing from Mrs. Fair, was really built off of people with skills, our elders, our community leaders, our thought leaders, etc. They are transferring that knowledge to the next generation of people. Our work is built off of education. How can we translate that into, the 21st century, if you will? And our answer to that was Alchemy Plus. So we have different courses and workshops on leadership development, entrepreneurship, creativity, marketing, all that kind of stuff, having workshops and inviting experts within our network all over the country to come in and just kind of provide those skills to community members. And also just providing a space where people who are passionate about building community, people who are passionate about organizing, creating, etc., can come together and have a shared space to commune, whether that be, speaking with each other, learning new skills together, holding each other accountable, all of that can take place on Alchemy Plus. So we're still in the beta right now, and we're always looking for more feedback. I highly encourage folks to go to alchemy.kheprw.org. I think Mimi was so gracious as to post all of our socials in the chat. I would also say, if you want to connect with us further, Alchemy Plus is a great place. We also have a weekly community conversation Friday from 3 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about all kinds of different topics. I'm sure Chink could talk a little bit more about that if we have some time, but that's another great place to connect with us. If you'd like to talk with us in person, of course, follow our newsletter, follow our social medias and all that good stuff too.
So I do thank you so much, Jeru, and Mimi, for putting all the different ways folks can stay in touch with Kheprw in the chat. There's a lot of different doors you can enter through. but you always get to the same place. And we do want to make sure we have a few minutes left for questions. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. Or Heather, I know you might have seen some themes.
You know, I think we've got a shy group here. There's not a lot of questions. There is one question that was put in about, you know, the curious about the difference between conflict management and conflict transformation. And Laura put in her thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours, that management is just getting through it, and transformation is finding a way to fix it or fix the problem. Does anyone on the call here have anything they want to add?
I would probably say that the main delineation of conflict transformation is that you're transforming the conflict into something else. So you're taking a situation that happened, conversating about it, and transforming it into something new. Yeah.
The only thing I'll add is that the transformation is not really tied to the particular conflict. The transformation happens in the growth of the relationship.
Right.
A lot of times when we it's adversity or something challenging, even in nature, plants, things grow through stress. So the transformation happens when you all become connected and understand each other on a deeper level, which is all the way outside of the particular conflict that provided that opportunity to transform.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the main differences is seeing conflict as an opportunity to access something that's there that needs attention. Oftentimes it's a deeper understanding. Like a lot of times if you're not understanding the way that someone is coming at you, that's because you don't understand where they're coming from. And the conflict gives you an opportunity to be like, why do you see it that way? And practice deep listening, not trying to interpret through your lens, but actually listen to someone else tell you how they see the world and where it comes from. And often, you know, it's childhood scripts. It's deep. And the conflicts that we experience is just like what comes to the surface. And that allows you to get into the heart of the matter and often get really close to someone by allowing them to be seen and going there with them to the heart of their person.
I also want to add that, you know, not all conflicts are really worth engaging with, you know, at some point. And there are also like every person has another person that they are just not going to be able to get along with, to work together with, to communicate with directly. And sometimes conflict transformation is about recognizing that too. Like maybe in order for us to work together, it's better for us to communicate through a proxy. You know, maybe our interests are not as aligned as we thought they were. And it would be better for both of us if we, you know, did not share the same space or, you know, worked on different projects. So that is a form of transformation as well, because the relationship then changes to one that is more productive for both parties in those situations.
The transformation is a critical part of the tool for authentic relationship building. So it's not even about resolving the conflict. Seek first to understand, then be understood. And through that kind of practice, you build more authentic relationships with each other, both friends and foes.
Yeah, I'll say that just from my own experience of being in the Kheprw space, it's been incredibly healing and challenging, but in a good way, to be somewhere that conflict is put front and center. Because it's like, you know, if there's one there, it's not going to get shoved down, which is a good thing, but it's also a little scary. You know, it's scary, but then when you get on the other side of it and you experience directly, or you sit in on some kind of conflict transformation, it is so deeply encouraging and strengthening. And I think it's also very rare. In my experience, I think it's growing, but in a lot of traditional organizations, we don't we don't center conflict transformation. So I think there's a lot to learn from that. Yeah, anyone?
I
I do see a
also
question about just Mimi, and you might want to talk about this too. Someone just asked, is there a program available to increase conflict capacity with these lenses?
That's exactly where I was going and when I just saw psychic connection. Yeah, definitely. So we actually just wrapped up the Kheprw Leadership Academy. Was a 5-week program that we did to dig into a lot of these skills that we use for transformation, community wealth building, intergenerational leadership, self-mastery, yada yada. So we had a few special sessions on conflict transformation. I mean, we just did another one with a group of about 80 college students here. So if you're interested, I would say the best way is to fill out the survey that we put in the chat and tell us in there that you're interested, and we can reach out to you. Because yeah, we do have ongoing programming, but we can also like partner with people to kind of get a sense of what are you looking for in conflict transformation. Like, when we went to the program with the students, the professor had noticed that she felt like a lot of her students were really conflict avoidant, and like hesitant to speak up even though they were going through a lot of things. And so a lot of our goal was just about helping people see conflict as an opportunity and get comfortable with the idea of getting at it, and giving them some tools to do that. So yeah, we definitely would love to learn like what are people seeing in your spaces as far as conflict and the potential for it to transform your relationships and your community. What would you be looking for? And we're happy to work with you through that.
So speaking of programs, I thought this last little bit, if each one of you could go around and just do it in one breath, because we didn't talk about any of the programs you guys are doing. And so I think let's go around and each one of you pick a program and in one breath just talk about it, because I think that that's something that is amazing that you guys are doing. So I'll popcorn it out. Who wants to jump in? Pick a program.
I'll go. You just experienced one today. This here is how we do leadership development. Real time in the real world, every day, just like this. This is a program of the Kheprw Institute that does not have a program name tied to it. It's our leadership development approach. Intergenerational approach with an emphasis on passing the microphone to next generation leaders so they can get practice on answering questions or communicating with the audience. And then what we'll do later, probably today, is then do a debrief review about what we thought went well, what did we miss, et cetera, et cetera. So as we continue to do community work, we have an opportunity to build on our collective intelligence and wisdom through this model. And I'm gonna popcorn it over to is anybody at Terra? Say a little bit more about the work we do in we'll say the environmental space. Maybe even CJ if you like.
It's funny because in my head I was like, don't say me.
He heard that and he was like, perfect.
I know, and I was like, let me stop in my head because I'm gonna mess around and it's gonna happen.
It was too late. It's too late. He already spilled the blood in the water.
The psychic connections are real strong in the Kheprw Institute. So the environmental space, I will just say as of now, well, I guess, so there's the environmental space in Kheprw, like internally and stuff. That one, Agila and I, which she's not on here right now, but she's great. We have been meeting together to figure out what that would look like in Kheprw space. And we first had conversations of like, okay, like, what does Kheprw bring to the table? Like, what are we already doing? Who are the connections we already have? what are the opportunities that are there, just like so we don't necessarily start from scratch, but it's making sure that when we are like developing this program, it's still rooted in Kheprw values, in the community values and stuff. So we landed on like emphasizing education and conversations and just bringing people together internally, which still in conversation mode right now. But externally, we're a member of this organization called Climate Justice Alliance. Aguila serves as one of the board members for there, and they focus on essentially like providing resources to frontline nonprofit organizations, communities and stuff, helping give organizations like ours like access to resources such as like funding or just like popular education, or even popular education as in like going places to meet up in person and to learn about specific topics, such as like alternative ways of accessing and raising funding. And so I serve on the CJA REOP, which is Reinvest in Our Power Committee, which that focuses on like, okay, how do we move this money from these like big billion-dollar investors into frontline communities, nonprofit organizations such as ours.
If you find the solution to that, share it, because we need a lot more of that happening in our communities.
Oh yes. We are working on it.
We have to wrap up. There's lots of amazing programs that you are all doing, and please, people, go to the website. But I just want to wrap us up. I have like massive sheets. I love finding the golden nuggets from a conversation. And so, be community, because that creates change. Community is not a program. Just be community. Another one is prioritize people first. A conflict is a source of growth. I love this one. Pay attention to your community. Shifting from needs to what do I bring? Because I think we all are the superheroes for anything that's happening in our community. So shifting needs to what do I bring to that solution.
Isn't that right, Azad? Azad.
We are the superheroes. So, and then, I really liked, Mimi, you talked about like the social, financial, physical, cultural capitals that we have in the community. But all of that, the foundation of all of that is relationships. And so I just want to thank you all. Thank you all for welcoming me twice into your home. And I'd love to come and visit again. And thank you for joining us here today. And I think this is a start of a relationship. So thank you.